Do you think you're traumatized or you're bored? Most people, if presented a different perspective, would detach from the story fairly quick. And some people are traumatized. It's harder to release that story. But about 90-95% of the world, they're not traumatized. They've just told that story themselves so many times.
You weren't always a coach.
Early career was in media. And then I got introduced to this company called Mindvalley, which is a personal development company. And I joined as an intern. In 2014, I became the CEO of the company. And right around the end of 2014, I had this challenge where I had basically self-imploded. I couldn't answer the question of who I am as a person. It drove me down the rabbit hole of hiring a lot of coaches and learning how amazing they are and how unfortunately poorly they're set up to do business. I want to help these people because damn, my life is saved because of them. People are reporting more mental health issues, not being able to find a partner, not being able to stay with a partner, all of which is the challenge of not understanding how to be with ourselves. I think coaching is the way. No course does this. Coaching is a conversation where I understand the human and I talk in context of the human. And because I talk in context of the human, I actually have a bigger chance of helping them.
And unfortunately, some people have been taken to the cleaners. Coaching is really valuable. You got to vet it.
Coaches who also do crypto,
Yes.
Don't hire those coaches. Their motivation is not to help you. Their motivation is how can I make the most money? Which is why our marketing is not about how you can make a lot of money. Our marketing is you want to do something meaningful. It is going to be hard for the first 3, 4, 5 years because you'll be learning a skill. But once you get to it, it is one of the most gratifying, meaningful things you will do because now you have had a life change.
Yeah, I'd asked you when you walked in, kind of how's everything going? How's you been busy? Traveling on Friday, going to India and Dubai, family in India, Dubai, moving there next year. It's like, okay, that's
Hopefully.
not like moving to Denver.
Yeah.
So you said 3 weeks there last year. Had you spent time there before, or was that really your first introduction to Dubai?
No, we have been to Dubai just as, just casual, speaking at events, traveling, just for no real reason, but that. We're fairly international as people. And this time we were like, okay, let's actually spend some time in Dubai. Why not? And so we ended up there for like 3 weeks. We were going to India again to visit my family. We were like, oh, this is a good. And at that time we didn't decide anything actually. But 6 months ago or 7 months ago, me and Nita were driving back from some retreat or something. And we were like, why are we in Austin? Like, we get it. We have friends, everything is good. We have our, 2 houses. The whole life is set up. There's nothing uncomfortable right now. But then both of us were like, yeah, but maybe we want to move. Maybe we want to like try something else. And that's also when we started to reflect, like, this is really not like from outside point of view, it doesn't look good at all. It's like you just settle your entire life here in the last 4 years, which is what we've been in Austin. Why would you have to be crazy to move? And we realized we are a little crazy.
Yes.
We have been doing this ever since we met and before we met each other as well. So I lived in Malaysia, I lived in Italy, I've lived in LA and in Austin ever since I started working. So every 4 to 5 years on average, I would move either cities or countries. So that's where I've been, and my wife's similar. She's moved cities or countries or just have been nomadic for a year or two. So yeah, you just called to say, all right, let's uproot our life. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but it is said that entrepreneurs tend to be chaotic. They like chaos and like they have a certain kind of, not addiction per se, they have some like kind of likeliness for a little bit chaos in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where both of us kind of stem from. Like we don't like too much stability. After a point, we're like, oh, this is too easy. We don't want too easy.
Yeah,
I think that's also why
complacency or yeah.
It feels like it could be one of the reasons.
How old are your kids?
3 and 6.
Okay, great. I'm working this out, reflecting on my own life through what you're experiencing right now. And I have similar thoughts about Austin. Like, I love it here. Mm-hmm. We've got lots of comfort. We've got great friends. And, our youngest is a senior in high school. So we're coming up to a different period of time where it would be easy to uproot and move. In that I'm really interested to explore like what that is I was in Chicago. We were in Chicago before we moved down here 11 years ago. Loved Chicago. But when I left the trading world, a dear friend, a coach said, look, you can live in Chicago, but you'll always be Cal, the ex-trader. If you're in Chicago, you move somewhere else, no one knows about fucking trading. They don't like, you get to put on like a new skin almost and like get out of that, all those identities that are, I mean, you get out of some of them, I suppose. You can't bring a lot of them with you, right? And it was awesome to leave that behind and start fresh. And I feel like my wife and I are coming into this new phase of our relationship, particularly as parents and as we relate to one another. And maybe that's, something for us to really start to explore, like, what would that look like? And it doesn't mean that we just sell everything here in Austin, but this is a great home base for a few months in the fall, few months in the spring. It's not great here in the winter. It's certainly not great here in the summer, and so how can we get the best of Austin and really get to scratch that itch of exploration and curiosity instead of just going someplace for a week on a vacation, to go get immersed in the culture.
Yeah. I mean, if that's important to you, I think the good question to ask, I mean, for you, I think could be a potential question to ask is, and it probably stems from, why do you need to worry so much about a label of, let's say, even the next trader? Does it actually, because that probably was never who Cal really is. I mean, Cal's so much bigger than whatever title somebody can give you or anybody can give anyone, really. There's a very small sliver of our life that anybody can ever see because most of it is live in our head. So nobody really gets to experience Cal the way Cal experiences Cal, right? So it's almost impossible for anybody to say, oh, I know Cal. I might know Cal a little bit in this context, in this conversation, but pretty much that's where the buck stops. So what is it that you're really driving towards? So the calling for, at least in the conversations that we could understand of each other, the calling was multifold. Firstly, because I wanted to be close to my parents. They're getting older. And I didn't want to move all the way to India. And Nita was like, I love Dubai. Let's move to Dubai. And she, while has strong family ties, her family was more open to travel because her immediate family is not alive anymore. Her aunt is a flight away from Dubai and she loves Dubai too. So like, I'll come over. I don't care. Yeah. It's a 13-hour flight, but she's down for it. So we're like, okay, so family, which is a very important factor for us, is actually more comfortable than less comfortable being in Austin, right? The second factor, which is both important to us, at least right now in this season of our life, where our kids also get exposed to them, so they can see like we are very family people. We hold family very dearly and friends really dearly. And then secondly was we both said that if we stay in one place, our tendency is so like we've traveled so much in our life that we don't know how to not travel. So even when we were in Austin, if you really would check in, probably 4 to 5 months of the year, we were never really in town. And it would be the same in Dubai too. It's not going to be any different. Is because we love going, because our friends are also everywhere, right? So then that's how you become, because then that becomes the way you travel. That's the way you live. So Dubai becomes actually more centered to easy to travel, right? Because you can go to Europe more easily. US has direct flights, at least to the bigger cities. India has direct flights. So like, we actually get closer to our friends.
Wow.
So it's very intentional to that. So I think if one would ask like you, Cal, is to say, why do I want to travel, right? It would also define travel on your terms. And I think that's a very interesting question to always wonder. To not do because you can, but do because you want to for a particular lifestyle or outcome or something like that. So it would be curious as to what's really getting you to ask, except for the weather sucks in summer and winter. What else is there? Because it will change, at least for me, it changed the way we traveled. Like we were very intentional. It didn't matter how old our kids were. We were like, no, we want to travel. And we take them, like people go, how can you travel with a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old? We never stopped. Yeah. We stopped for maybe 12 weeks or 16 weeks when the kids are 3-4 months, they're not allowed to fly pretty much. I think it's something like that. I think it's 2 months, they're not allowed to fly. That was pretty much the time when we said, okay, let's not fly anywhere. And when COVID happened, of course, we couldn't fly, but otherwise we were flying all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll reflect on that for sure. Yeah. Thank you.
What's the outcome do you get?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like for me, being here for, let's call it 10 months, because we go to Idaho in the summer, I feel like there's a tendency to have that stagnation. I think it's more prevalent as the weather turns, as we get into, kind of holidays are one thing, but through the holidays and like January, February, it's a bit, become a bit detached from maybe mission. And I also understand that there are seasons for that, and I do crave the sunlight. That's a big thing. It's why I love going to Idaho in the summer. It's sunny every single day. We're outside every day, and that feels good. No matter what I may be ingesting, that may not be great for me. Like, I always feel healthy there, and it's just wonderful. A reminder of that connection to the sun. Yeah.
There's a fun it happened today. We train in the last 4 years, I've trained about 10,500 coaches.
That's it?
10,000. That's it. Yeah. Small, very small. Right. So among those, there's sometimes we have weekly calls with some of the coaches that are getting certified right now in the journey. So I was on one of the calls, and there's one of my students that goes, "Hey, Ajit, you know what? I have this big trauma." And I was like, "Okay, tell me the trauma," especially when it's trauma. I'm like, "Definitely tell me the trauma." It's like, because I don't believe in it, which I'll come to in a second. Not for everyone, but for 95% of the people that say they are traumatized. But anyway, so there's this person that I just have this trauma. I was like, "Tell me the trauma." He was like, "Well, when I was in my mother's womb, my brother died. And because of that, ever since in October, ever since then, in October, I gained 5 to 10 pounds." And this is like a 40-year-old woman, or looked like. I shouldn't judge, but older woman, not like in 20s for sure, right? So I was like, okay. So in October, every year you gain 5 to 10 pounds because of the brother that you never met. They're like, yeah, because it's traumatic, and it was traumatic because my mother talks about it all the time. I was like, okay, so you've never experienced this person yourself and your mother. How long have you not lived with your mother? Well, about 20 years or something like that. I've been out since 17 is what she said. So at least 10 years, at least 20 years. I was like, so you've been out and not living with your mother for at least 10 years. When she calls you in October, do we start talking about your brother's death all the time? Like, no, if she brings it up, I totally tell her not to. So I was like, okay, where do you live? And I feel like she might have said Idaho or someplace where basically I know it gets really gloomy and cold at that time. So she lives somewhere in that part of America. I might be missing the exact city she gave me. And I was like, how's the weather outside? Like, I really like working out, but during those months, I don't like going out. I don't want to walk in the sun. And, I tend to worry. I was like, do you think you're traumatized or you're bored? I mean, it went a little bit more softer than that. But the essence of the conversation was, you're not traumatized. You're just bored. You're inside. You're cooped up. You like being outside. There's no sun. There is no workout you're going to. You're going less to the gym because you think, oh, it's so gloomy out there. You're not traumatized. You're gaining weight because you're bored. You're not moving. You're not doing the work that you do. So you're not eating healthy probably either. So sometimes we create these stories around us all the time that are so important to break. So my recommendation for her was try moving to a sunny area in that month. Or just try for 1 month, right? And then she goes, oh, you're so right. Last Thanksgiving, I didn't gain weight because I was in Jamaica. I was like, all right, so we have the solution.
So we have the trauma.
Solution. You are not traumatized at all. You just need a change of season. And that's all it is.
It's crazy what our mind can create for us.
Yeah, if you keep telling yourself that story, suddenly that story is your truth of life. That doesn't mean it's the truth of life.
I love that.
Yeah. And that's why I don't believe that much in about 95% of people that say they're traumatized. They're not traumatized. They've just told that story themselves just so many times that they can't think anything else is reality. So they just go, this is the truth.
And then, so for you as a coach, do you come in and just reflect in a different way? Like with this woman, like maybe there's some other factors at play. Like, how do you get them to detach from that story?
So most people, if presented a different perspective, would detach from the story fairly quickly. Most people, I'm not saying everyone. And some people are traumatized. If there's an emotional or physical abuse involved in your childhood, there's a possibility that you carry it and it's harder to release that story. And so we usually tell them to go to a therapist because that might sometimes need medication or any other kind of support that we are not qualified to provide. But about 95% of the world, if you give a different perspective, they will go, and they will actually think about it because most people are incredibly brilliant. Like actually everybody is incredibly brilliant if you really think about it. But if you can provide a different perspective, another way to look at the same thing, once they see it, they can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And if they keep going down that path, they will actually have a different life. So we call it a disempowered thought or empowered thought, right? A disempowered thought is any thought that is not in the direction of the goal that you want to have for your life or a direction of life you want to have, right? A disempowered thought is because it's too hot, I cannot work out. It's a disempowered thought because let's say you want to be healthy, you want to be fit, right? An empowered thought is it could be hot, but the gym is air conditioned. I can go to the gym, right? Or it can be hot, but not at 5 a.m. Right? I could wake up early. Right now, I've given an alternate perspective. Most people go, that's true. Maybe I can sign up for the gym. Maybe I can wake up early, depending on what you are and what you like and so forth. But you once you present the perspective, the question of it's too hot, I can't work out, at least has an option. And the moment we have options, we all are so brilliant as human beings, we at least would consider it. Now then will come the conditioning around you, people around you, all the other systems that might be around you. But if you gave yourself an opportunity to at least try, it is likely that within the frame of the first 30 days of you attempting something different, and you will have a different life, or at least to start to see the light of a different life. So that's kind of what we aim to do when I'm working with people is at least show that there is another way to looking at this thing that you think is so big and heavy and crazy. And often, like if you can make the person laugh while you're doing it, it's much easier to accept. So just another conversation the other day where somebody was like, Ajit, so are you saying I should be radically honest? And I was like, yes, if you understand what radically honest means. They're like, what do you mean? It is basically say what you think. I was like, no, that's not what radical honesty is. Radical honesty actually stems from a lot of candor. Radical honesty is me saying, there's a point of view I have, and a point of view you have. You have the right point of view. I have the right point of view for myself. So when I am communicating, while I'm being honest to myself, I'm also being gentle and kind and understanding. If there is no candor, it's not radical honesty. It's just being an asshole. Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, I'm sorry, can I use the language like that?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah, have at it.
Cool. I didn't check in on that. But that's kind of what the difference between a radical honest person and a person that's just, getting by in life, hurting everybody around them.
Yeah.
No? So that's kind of like distinctions that will make somebody laugh. Like if you laughed, right? Because I said, well, that's not radical honesty, that's being an asshole. It's easier to receive. It's like, oh, okay. That's what radical honesty is. It's much easier to shift your perspective because you have a smile or a tear, depending on what we're working on. That's all is required. A little emotional change and a perspective option, and the person changes. It's actually really easy to change once you get that.
But you weren't always a coach, and not that obviously I say professionally. It's not like you started out as a coach. It was something that I think you more recently stepped into over the last 4 or 5 years, or
so. No, for the last 8 years I've been coaching. Almost a decade. Close to a decade. But I started as so I've always been in coach-like environments. Accidentally, not by choice. So, for example, my grandfather was an elder in our society where he was, right? We were not very wealthy as people, but we would see people coming in all the time in our house, sitting around my grandfather and having really long conversations. We were never allowed to sit in them, but it was the experience that we were having pretty much all the time. And we would always wonder, who are these people? Because sometimes they will go at like 11, 12 in the night. And as kids, we were like, why are these people? And at that time, it's like, we're talking like 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And so it was like, who are these people who are at our house? Sometimes they come at like 8 in the morning and they leave at 11 o'clock in the night. So we're going to school and these people are coming in and we're going to bed and they're still here. And it seems like they're still there while we are going to bed. So what were these people? So later on, we were introduced to the idea that our grandfather is actually seen like one of those people that if a person cannot resolve an argument, they would come to my grandfather to resolve it in the entire community. One of the most, people who will hold the ground. And so I was always exposed to that idea. And somewhere, I guess I got kind of introduced and wired to think a little bit differently because of that. I haven't really traced where it comes from. Maybe I'm naturally like that. But to think that there is always a different perspective or to question everything before you make up your mind. And because of that, my early career was in media. And then I got introduced to this company called Mindvalley, which is a personal development company.
Yeah,
when it was just starting out, it was like 4 or 5 year old company at the time. So there were like 10, 15 employees. We used to work out of a bungalow. We didn't even have an office. It was so much of a bungalow that one room had a bed just in case the cops showed up to say nobody lives there. So it was that much of a hack at one point. I don't know if I'm allowed to tell that story, but it was basically a tiny company. And so I joined as an intern, mostly out of my curiosity to learn how to use the internet to build a career.
What year was this?
This is 2008. So about...
Damn.
Yeah, it's been about 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years. 16 years, actually.
16.
At the time we were talking. It was actually December 2008. So I go in there, I join in as an intern at that time. And it just, in the next 6 years or so, I just got really into it. And I learned a lot about personal development there. I learned a lot about trainers and teachers and a little bit about coaching. Coaching wasn't the thing at the time. Mm-hmm. It was more trainers on stage talking or speeches and programs. That was the more popular thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I got introduced to those people. And because of that, I got introduced to personal development. And because of that, I also got introduced to coaching generally, just as a small thing at the time. And I was running the company. In 2014, I became the CEO of the company. And I was running the company kind of before that as well, but I was the title of CEO in 2014. And right around end of 2015, I had this challenge where I had basically self-imploded. I was running the company really well. We were seeing growth in the business. I would have continued my profession, but everything else in my life sucked. So I had no friends left. All my friends were my employees. I had my relationship with that partner was completely off because we were not living even in the same places, not pursuing the same life, not pursuing the same outcome for how we want to live our life. And so I kind of one day was walking down it was New Year's Eve, actually, I vividly remember. And Kuala Lumpur is kind of like Malaysia. But Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia is kind of like New York.
Okay.
It has, everybody's on the streets and there's fireworks.
It looks rad. I've never been there, but I've seen it in movies and I'm like, that place looks amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing as a city. And so we had fireworks and everything. So I was like, all right, let's go out. I'm out with my friends, which were basically my colleagues. And at one point I get separated from them. And as I'm getting separated, I'm looking for them. And I see this beautiful older Asian woman staring right at me, wearing like, all white garb, basically, as if she's coming from a ceremony. You don't expect that in Kuala Lumpur, which is everybody's drunk kind of city.
Okay.
On a New Year's Eve, like not a ceremonial dress, but seemed like a ceremonial dress. And she's looking right at me. And I don't know who this woman is. I don't remember her, but she looks pretty and she's beautiful. And so she starts walking towards me and I'm like, okay, I don't know. This is why she's looking dead in my, the awkward, she's walking at me as if like I know her and I have no idea who this is, or she has something really important to have done something wrong.
Yeah.
She comes right at me, like real close to my face and goes, "Who are you?" And I was like, oh, maybe she knows Mindvalley or something. So I was like, oh, I know, I'm CEO of Mindvalley. My name is Ajit. Like, no, who are you? I was like, Ajit. I mean, I don't know. I'm Indian. No, who are you? And that I couldn't answer that question. Like I couldn't answer the question of who I am as a person. And I think that's what she was asking me. And I couldn't answer it. And so I was kind of like confused and dazed and like unsure of what's happening around me, because I was also like, is this happening really? Like, this is really weird. And by the time I could get myself together, I saw the woman walk away and just walk past me and like disappear almost. It seemed like in the crowd. And I was just standing there at that time going, I don't know the answer to this question. Who am I? And so that question kept simmering, especially this is New Year's Eve, which means next 2-3 days, nothing's really happening. Now I'm sitting over those days trying to answer this question, who am I? And I couldn't answer it. And that really drove me down the rabbit hole of hiring a lot of coaches, getting a lot of coaches engaged with me and learning how amazing they are and how unfortunately poorly they're set up to do business. And so that was my first initial drive. My initial drive was like, I want to help these people because damn, my life is saved because of them. Like that was my first reason to actually start coaching, because I just felt like I had that was my contribution. I quit being CEO about 4 months after that, 5 months after that. And I said, I'm just going to do this. I started helping coaches, helping other businesses, and in the practice became a coach myself. So initially when I started the company, which was then called Evercoach, was a training platform for coaches. It had nothing to do with me. I wasn't the trainer. It was trainers I had on the platform teaching different programs. And that's how we started the journey. But eventually there was a point where it was right around the COVID time that I had so much success with my clients, one-on-one clients or business clients to teams that I was coaching, that my team kept saying, Ajit, you have to put out a program. You have to put out a program. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not a coach. They're like, dude, like we hear the stories of your clients all the time. We've met your clients. You probably, like I would have business clients saying I've saved their marriage. And I was like, I didn't even talk about your marriage in the entire time. But it's because of the way you start looking at the world once you've been coached right, that it doesn't change one thing that you're working on, it changes everything. Right. And so then I started training about 5 years ago. Really properly 4.5 years ago. This was my first ever certification program that we released. And ever since, like I said, we've coached about 15,000 people in the last 4.5 years or so and have over 3,000 testimonials.
Damn. Okay. What do you think makes you a master coach?
Curiosity. That's it. I'm pretty certain of that. I thought about it a lot. I was like, what is so different? It's just because I keep digging. I keep asking until I get to a place, and then perspective. It's just about, I have like set structure for it, but mostly this is a perspective shift. It's mostly an ability to be like, when I'm with you, I'm with you. There's no thoughts of what your past might be, what my past might be, what your future might be, my future might be. And because of that, there is no judgment. There is no frame of this is who Cal is, right? There's never who Cal is. There's always Cal who is right now. And that what Cal will be tomorrow might be completely different to Cal yesterday. So why even carry the past Cal, right? So there's the presence. That's the first thing. That's probably the fundamental of any great coach. The second is being able to stay curious so they can shift perspective of what we call the organize the mind thing, which is choosing an empowered thought versus a disempowered thought, which brings us to the place where most people give up, which is habits, or what we call bioengineering, which is to see how you can take everything that you just shifted based on your empowered thoughts. How does that become a practice? Because that is an everyday situation, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to do this. I know now. But 3 days later, you go, oh, I fell for the trap. Now, most people will give up when they fall for the trap instead of recognizing it's supposed to be a trap.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to work out.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep at it for it to work out eventually. But it's not going to work out in the first 6 months that you're going to try. Right? The biggest pitfall. Yeah. And the last thing is, which again, it's not always talked about, or I don't like to go straight there, but eventually we get there with our clients, which is connectedness of purpose, or understanding how the world works, becoming more world-centric as a person, and seeing there's a grand scheme of things that go beyond you. Because the way we have structured the society as of now it's self-centric. It's very much about me and I. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good way to operate when you're creating your first season of growth, you can say, in life. But eventually, it doesn't help you do something that's more meaningful. And when you lose meaning is when you lose direction. And you lose meaning is when you lose the friendships. When you lose meaning is when you think I'm better than you. But once you have meaning, then we are all in this together.
I love that. Kind of this, just to drill down on the curiosity part a little bit, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you're engaged in that kind of inquiry and allowing your client to come up with whatever the thing is, whatever the nugget is. It's not you saying, this is here's your prescription. It's you just teasing it from within them. And that's how we make the changes ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So curiosity keeps you digging. And because you're digging, often you don't even have to do anything as a coach. but to keep digging. Because more often than not, I've seen people just find their own answer. They go kind of like, duh.
Yeah.
I knew that. It's one of those things like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Sometimes you have to kind of offer it, but most of the times you don't. It depends on how much time you have also with the client. But when I'm working one-on-one, if I'm working one-on-one, which is very rare now, but if I am doing that, then it's about time. We take as much time as we need to take. But when I'm on a group and we're on a time constraint, then I might offer up a perspective and say, what about this? Or have you considered this? And then it's faster. We call it laser coaching in our world. So instead of taking an hour to talk to someone, you're taking 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Yeah. And so you have to kind of move along really fast. And so you're just going straight to the point and not really pondering or letting them ponder too much.
One of the things I've heard you say before is this concept of building a business versus building a life. And I think the first one is a trap that many of us can get stuck in. And I've heard you speak about it. And I love your articulation of just kind of all the lies we tell ourselves, whether we're entrepreneurs or we're working all the time. And I'd love to hear you just kind of share some more thoughts on that.
So I think everything, so working all the time, let's start there, because that seems to be a common trap or understanding of work. More I interact with people who have built phenomenal companies, and I'm sure it's true for you as well, Cal, is that they actually don't work more. They actually work less. Mm-hmm. They talk and interact more, but they don't work. They're not sitting at the computer and writing things. Mm-hmm. They're not typing stuff out. They more often than not are like, oh, let me go call that friend, or let me call that colleague. Oh, we need an investment deal. Let me just talk to you, right? They're interacting. Right. And the nuance of difference of an understanding of hard work for somebody who's starting and hard work for somebody who has gotten successful is completely different. Because what you may call hard work for another person that is right now doing this and thinking I'm typing, it's so hard work, is actually hard. Because it's actually after a point, you're like, my eyes are glazing. It feels like something's burning through my eyes because I've been on the computer for the 6th hour at this point. You probably did that in your trading days. I heard you mention you were a trader before, right? Yes. So you might have done that. But today, Kyle as an investor is not sitting in the computer thinking about which stock's going up, which stock's going down. Right. He's saying, oh, you have a business idea? Tell me what it is. Pitch me in 3 minutes. It's a good idea. Let's talk more. Right? Yes. Or it's a terrible idea. Sorry, not for me. Yeah. Right. And you'll walk away. Right. That's hard work for you. Is not hard work for this person. Yeah. This person is actually working really hard. Yeah. Most of us who've gotten a certain level of success in our life is actually not working hard. We are interacting hard. We're interacting in the world because we've gotten to this place. So hard work is contextual, which is what I'm really getting to. Yeah. Is hard work changes with life. Hard work is hard when you're starting. Is because you're acquiring a new skill. Mm. It's not actually hard work. It's hard learning. Mm. Because everything that you learned in college and school was out of context of life. Mm. Right?
For sure.
So it's out of context of life. It gave you good friends that you'll probably cherish for the rest of your life. It gave you some foundations, hopefully, if your school was decent or your teachers were decent. It gave you maybe some confidence that you can go about in the world because you know things. Right? That's probably all school or college did for you. And when you get to life, you realize, oh, this field is completely different. It is about people. It's about interacting, making friends. It's about knowing intuition, knowing like how to make a good decision, how to not get stuck in decision making, right? Because all of that was done in school for you. Now you have to do it. Yeah. So when you're interacting in the world in the first 10 years, if you focus on skill building, you will never work again, from my point of view, right? Because if in the first 10 years of your life, you say, I am here to learn, and I'm going to focus my life on learning. And these first 10 years is definitive. So between my 20s and 30s, all I'm doing is skill gaining. I'm going to gain the highest value skill I can. And I'll keep doing it after that, but it'll become easier because I've gained the foundational skills, which is, let's say, and this is true. And I don't know if you've met enough people, is where they will come to you and say, I have this problem, I have this problem. And I would go, have you asked anyone for help? No. I didn't know that was an option. So like that's one of the fundamental skills of successful life is ask, right? But you don't learn that until somebody
No.
tells you, dude, can you like just ask me if nobody else, right? Ask ChatGPT at today's time, like ask something, ask someone, but they would not. And that's a whole skill to learn, like simple things like that, to be comfortable asking for help, right? So the hard work that you're doing right now, or people who are doing, is people who forget that it's not about working hard, it's about gaining the right skills. And that's what makes you more money and makes you more successful. The higher value skill you have, the more money you get paid. Because after a point, the higher value skill is so high value that you just sitting there is all that matters. Because you will say one thing at the end of the meeting, it will change everything. Or something in the middle of the meeting, and suddenly people are like, holy shit, I was even working on the wrong problem. I wasn't even working on the right problem. And this person comes and sits there and says, that's the wrong problem. And that's all you need in that meeting, right? What is that? That's a highly valuable skill. That's what anybody that is wildly successful is doing. They're solving the right problems. That's really what it is, nothing else, right? So with that understanding, you would understand that the work that you're doing, if you're still working really hard in your 40s, it's because you didn't invest time in learning a high value skill. It doesn't mean you're late. It simply means do that now. Right? And because you're already 40, it'll only take you 3 years instead of 10. Because you've already got all the life behind you. So you learn things faster, you understand things faster. You might have to get your body in order if you never took care of that. But other than that, you actually learn way faster than a 20-year-old, right? So at 40, just start learning. In 3 years, you're a completely different life, right? Hard work's not hard work. Hard work mostly is a lack of high value skill. There is no hard work. Work is actually really easy.
What are you working on right now?
Right now is further growing our capabilities of being able to educate more people on the skill of life coaching and business coaching. And the reason is because I believe the world that we are coming on to now, the more and more challenges, and it's already showing its signs, where people are reporting more mental health issues. We have got more people gaining weight. We have more people being single, not being able to find a partner, not being able to stay with a partner. All of which is the challenge of not understanding how to be with ourselves. And the reason we have more time with ourselves is because technology has made life easy, right? You can do, I know, and my team already knows that we have shaved about 30% of our work just by using AI tools in the last 1 year.
Damn.
30% of our work, right? And it's only getting better and better. Like today I found a tool where I can make a YouTube scripts ghostwriting job done in a matter of minutes versus days.
What?
Oh yeah, I'll show you later. I've just tested it this morning actually. So I will show you. I'm not recommending it because I don't know yet if it's actually that good or not. But I was like, this is a pretty good first draft of the thing that I was doing. But it's basically you talk into the app, and the app, based on what you give it as demographics that you talk to, based on your speaking style, which you have to give a sample text to, will spit out a ghost written first draft of, let's say, a YouTube script. Now you will still refine it, but it saves the task from my writer at least a day's work, right? Wow. So my writer can get everything done faster. I'm not going to pay them less money, but they are going to earn money overall because now they can spit out more scripts, right? And they have a lot more time on their hand. What happens when we have too much time? We get bored. We look at Instagram. We eat food that we don't need. Nobody's saying, oh, I have more time, let me go for a walk. It's very rare that people say, oh, I have more time, let me hit the gym. No, we say, oh, let me get some cake. Or we ruminate, which is the worst. It's the worst. We're like, oh, that person said that, and they start nitpicking on everything that somebody said. Those are all things that lead to mental health issues. They are all starting steps. Too much time on Instagram, starting mental health. Too much time ruminating, looking at somebody else's life, eating wrong foods. All of those are just first steps towards bad mental health eventually. That cascades 2 to 3 years later. And that's more and more common now. So how do we at least be present that this will happen or is happening, and we can help ourselves or help people around us? I think coaching is the way. No course does this. Coaching is a conversation where I understand the human and I talk in context of the human. And because I talk in context of the human, I actually have a bigger chance of helping them.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's the mission right now.
What do you see as, like, regarding that mission, like what keeps you up at night? Like this
Nothing keeps me up at night.
Oh yeah.
I am not a keeping up at night kind of person. I used to. I also like we were talking about don't drink coffee. So my biological system's pretty all right because of it. But I don't like the idea of keeping up at night. I don't. It's not because I'm not passionate. I'm very passionate about what I do, but I'm also passionate about living my life in the greatest way. I have a 3 and a 6-year-old. I don't want to teach them that their father cannot sleep in the night because he thinks about work all the time.
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to what I say. They're going to see what I do.
That's right.
Right. And if father cannot sleep, they might think that's how you're supposed to live life. I don't want that. I don't want them for them. I don't want them for me. And why would I? I mean, I take a reasonable amount of sleep. It's not like I sleep 10-hour nights because that's too much for me. My body probably needs anywhere between 6 to 8 hours. So that's what I sleep. But I don't discount sleep. It doesn't keep me up at night.
Is there anything you're trying to solve for now as you grow the company and try to serve more people?
Yeah, lots of things. There's always a lot of things to solve. So for example, like I said, we've trained about 15,000 coaches over the past 4.5 years or something, right? Which is great, phenomenal, amazing. Probably the most number of certified coaches that anybody has done. But we haven't really, because of our focus on the product, we didn't focus on marketing and messaging that much, right? So we have 10,000, our net promoter score, which is basically a way to analyze the quality of a program, is 82, which is really high, especially for online programs, is insanely high. Like I said, we have over 3,000 testimonials, which is also really high for the amount of people that we have trained. But I never really focused on becoming more available on your phone. Let's just say it that way, right? So because I never focused on it, I'm not necessarily very good at it. I'm also a person that naturally sees gaps. I'm a mismatcher, you can say. So nothing is good enough and everything is, that kind of thing. So I'm right now in a pursuit to say, how do you create this? Coaching is a large container, right? We can sit here and talk for hours, or minimum coaching sessions at least 25 minutes. You can't put 25 minutes on Instagram and have somebody's attention, right? So how do you make it more accessible? And eventually you want to make it more accessible, because as it becomes more accessible, more people become open to the idea, oh, maybe I should consider getting a coach. Maybe I should learn the skill for myself, because this is a valuable skill for all of my life, right? Younger people will want access to it. Older people will want access to it. So the idea right now is, how do you take this really broad concepts, broad ideas that you know how to communicate over 25 minutes when you're talking to someone, or an hour when you're talking to someone? But how do you do that in 30 seconds? Right? It needs to be snappy. It needs to follow certain other rules. Or if you want to do it for YouTube, it needs to be within like 30 minutes or something, because you can't keep rambling for hours and hours there either. So it's a completely different skill. It's not coaching skill. It's presentation skill. It's not even presentation. I think it's more like a storytelling skill, to be able to go, oh, that's what it's called. And I'm very new to these terms. I don't do a good job with them, but you need to have a visual hook. You need to have a text hook. You need to have this hook and that hook. I'm like, wow, this is a whole different science. So that's what I'm learning right now. So I'm very curious about it.
For what it's worth, I love just the DNA of what you've created, and that it's not made through this like whole marketing prism of, let's just grab the most amount of eyeballs and convert the most amount of people without maybe having a
good product.
Exactly. And so you really focus on the product, and you're like, okay, now maybe we should figure this other shit out, because that will help us expand. We're kind of maybe at a place where there's, I want to speak for you, but inertia there. We have a greater capability if we can pull some of these dials.
Absolutely.
In my own experience, I've done a handful of different coaching certifications.
Oh,
have coached for a while, not recently, but have gone through that process. You could probably speak to this as well, but there were coaching sessions, many coaching sessions that I had one-on-one where I was the coach, and I was gaining so much from my questions to him. And, he would reflect back, and I was like, oh, fuck, I got to remember that. That's like, I was coaching myself through him and getting paid for it. So that was a beautiful experience just from my own learning. And I've always had coaches myself. And so the skill acquisition of learning how to be a coach, I think is invaluable. And to then have your own coach or set of coaches, whatever suits you, I think is really important. Just as, if nothing more than just a safe space to share, reflect, not ruminate, as you said. And I think Right now, I do actually have a little bit of a gap in my coaching, kind of area, and I've noticed there's a little bit more of that rumination that's turning into, I wouldn't call it anxiety, but making problems where there really aren't problems. Right? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
And or at least that's what I do when I have too much time on my hands.
Yeah.
So I love that you're offering that to people to not only get coached by any number of, and I was on the website, you guys have coaches everywhere. So I know a lot of stuff is probably online by now, but I think there's a certain comfort where it's like, oh, my coach actually lives here in Austin and I get to interact with them in person if that works for us. But I think that is a piece that is missing for a lot of people. And unfortunately, some people have been taken to the cleaners. They've been sold a bill of goods that this coach is going to deliver this. Again, because someone took a different class and it was all about marketing and they had the right price with the 97 or whatever, they do all that funky shit.
Yeah.
And then you get sucked in and you're like, I'm a sucker. I fell for that.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, coaching's really valuable. You just need to find the right connection. You got to vet it, and that's okay. It's part of learning is doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, wrong. There's no wrong way.
That's right.
It's just a way to learn, and maybe that was what the universe had intention for you at that time, for you to learn in a particular way, and that's perfectly okay. It is not okay on the coach's part if they did not actually learn the art of coaching and focus purely on marketing. And usually, what I've seen is with those coaches, give them about 2 or 3 years, and then they disappear. Most of them do.
Yeah.
Because their focus is wrong. Right? Their focus is, how can I get more clients? How can I make money while doing nothing? They usually will switch to the next thing. So those coaches right now are doing cryptocurrency, for example. Right?
Yes,
they're just like coaches who also do crypto.
Yes.
Don't hire those coaches. They only know marketing.
Yes.
Right? Or they are doing drop shipping or whatever is the new funky thing that makes money right now immediately, because they're not coaches. They never were wanting to be. They wanted to be people who wanted to take on the opportunity that was available right now.
Yes.
Which I understand from one point of view, but for your own sake, as a person who's hiring a coach, don't hire that guy or that girl who's doing 3 different things at the same time.
Yeah.
Because their motivation is not to help you. Their motivation is, how can I make the most money? Which is what this was one of the reasons why we built Evercoach and Mindvalley Coach now, is because we realized there's so many people who talk about how to make money, like literally certifications, it's a 6-month program, 4 months they teach you marketing. I was like, how does that make any sense? Like, it's a coaching certification. You teach coaching for 2 months, and for 4 months you tell them how to sell this 2 months of training. Like, it makes no sense.
Bro.
Like, why are these people doing a coaching certification if the intent is not? It's like saying I go to do an MBA and all I learn is how to get a job.
Yeah. I learned how to interview really well.
Yeah, like I'm a great person to interview. Of course, you never will stick to a job. You will keep interviewing.
Yeah.
Right? No, you go to a school to learn something. And then if you get good at it, you get a job. And usually first job is a shitty job.
Yes.
And then you get better at it. And then you get a better job and you stick to it for 5 years. If you stay focused, coaching is, you get faster progress because usually you get into the field a little bit later. So you tend to be attracted to coaching if you're over 35 because you've done one season of life.
So that actually I was going to ask you that. Do you have coaches that come in the program at 25, 26, 27? How does...
I've had a 17-year-old coach.
So my I don't want to say necessarily a concern, but generally not a ton of life experience.
It depends on how you define experience.
Okay. They haven't had to maybe deal with a lot of shit. And now I know I'm making a generally speaking, most 17, 22, 25-year-olds don't have a ton of life experience that is relatable to someone who's 50 and had...
Yeah, they're not coaching the 50-year-old either.
Okay.
Right? So the question, and I'm not saying you're wrong. You're not necessarily wrong. The question to ask, a better question, in my opinion, to ask is, A, why are they doing it? And secondly, who will they serve? Right?
Mm.
So think about, let me give you an example. Her name literally is my daughter's name. That's why I also remember her.
Yeah.
Because my daughter's name is Isla. She's 3. And this coach that I trained was 17 at the time. Now she must be 19. Her name was Isla. She is, and I don't recall the country specifically, but I think she was somewhere in the Middle East. And she was struggling because she was like, I really want to break out from some of the traditions of the family. And I don't know how to. And my friends want to too, and I want to help them.
Mm.
Do you think a 50-year-old man in Texas can coach this person better?
No.
Or Isla can coach her friends better?
Yeah.
Context.
I think my context was looking at myself as a dumbass 25-year-old. Who was I going to coach?
But let's say if you were 25 and let's say you are an athlete. Yeah, she's inspired, right? And at 25, let's say you were inspired by a particular thing that was happening in your life. And you were like, I want to help people my age because I feel like, or younger than me, or slightly older than me, who are struggling with this one thing, right? And that one thing sometimes is all the thing that matters to those category of people.
Yeah.
Right? Intelligence, maturity is all in context. I have met 60-year-old completely immature people that shouldn't coach anyone.
Yeah.
And I've met 30-year-olds that I want to get coached by.
Yeah.
So it is all contextual. There's no way an age, a gender, a particular skin tone can define if somebody can or cannot be a coach. It's the decisions, like just to be drawn to a career. Like I think people sometimes think this is really easy, but think about coaching as a career. It's probably one of the dumbest careers to pick if you think about it. Because here is what you're deciding to do. You're saying, I'm going to listen to your pain, your drama, your trauma. I will listen to it, and then I will be regulated enough that I will not react or judge you. Stay curious and help you navigate your life for a few $100 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
It is the world's most difficult job. And to get you on that chair, even, I will have to work my butt off because I have to prove that I can help you on an intellectual, emotional, psychological level, which is so hard to prove. So enrollment is hard. Delivery is harder. It's the dumbest career to pick if you think about it. So if you're picking this career, there is something inherently good about you to say, I am going to choose this pain. Because it's hard to listen to somebody's story and not go, I want to cry with you. And that's what a good coach does. They don't cry with you. They're with you. They're not going to join you. Right?
Yes.
It is incredibly difficult to be a coach from a business point of view, from a delivery point of view, and to keep doing it year after year, hours after hour. It is a very difficult profession to be in. So if you're called to it, you have either had life experience, you have some kind of calling, you're spiritually aligned, you need to have so much empathy for the world that you're like, I am going to go through this to help somebody else. So it's actually a really difficult, which is why I said the people who are not ready for it will switch to cryptocurrency very quickly. They're like, I'll do real estate instead.
And then when the interest rates go down, they'll get into real estate.
It's like, drop shipping, please. Anything but this thing. This is hard.
Well, I'm glad I asked because I have had that kind of bias around younger coaches. And again, when I think about it, it's mostly because I was thinking about my own self. And within that, like not even thinking about something that was really important to me when I was 25. You know, maybe it was like how to make it as a single trader and, you know, where there's a lot of stress and you're trying to, there's a lot there that I probably could have spoke to.
Yeah.
If I was inspired to.
Yeah.
And I think that was the key takeaway for me was if someone's truly inspired and they're not doing it because they think it's a cool thing to do, and as you said, that they won't last long anyway.
Yeah, they would disappear pretty quickly. They might, of course, like any profession, they're bad financial advisors and they're good financial advisors. They're bad doctors and they're good doctors. There's that dynamic will be there in coaching too. We can't really help that. But that's why the job of us as institutes or people who run institutes become that we become really clear on who we are inviting, which is why our marketing is not about how you can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Our marketing is you want to do something meaningful. And so we attract people that are driven by that versus how much money can I bank? Now, I made millions myself coaching
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can make that. But that's not the first thing I would say. I would first talk about how hard it is to be a coach.
I love that.
And what you're really saying yes to. You're saying yes to sitting down and listening to someone for hours sometimes to help them navigate that pain that they're going through or the desire they have that they can't fulfill. It is not an easy profession. It is a very heart-centered profession. It is very gratifying. One of the most gratifying professions I know of, because when you see that smile at the end of the session, when you get that thank you for the 100th time from the same person, no amount of money beats that.
Yeah.
Because now you have had a life changed, and nothing gratifies a human being than helping any other human being. That's our ultimate contribution. That's what we hope we all could live at some level in our hearts, right? That's what makes our heart full.
Yeah.
Not our ego, our heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I still recommend, if there's somebody who's called to, absolutely. It is going to be hard for the first 3, 4, 5 years because you'll be learning a skill, like in any skill. But once you get to it, it is one of the most gratifying, meaningful things you will do in the day. You will look forward to every day, 100%. So if you're in a soul-crushing career, soul-crushing business, I invite you to at least consider looking at this as an option, because it is the most fulfilling thing I've done in my life.
I love that articulation of coaching because, as we said earlier, so much of what you see being marketed isn't that. It's, hey, you can make 10x what you make now this month. And then there's the testimonials is all driven by money. And it just makes me cringe. It's like, what are we doing here? And who are you attracting? It's always been my thing. Who are you attracting? I can just tell by your message that, by and large, you're getting just the best people. They understand what, as best as they can, what they're getting into, what they're signing up for. There's no bullshit. It's like, it's fucking hard. And it's 3 to 4 to 5 years of this learning. And there is a pot of gold at the end of this. May not be money, but what is going to fulfill you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking for, right? I mean, you've made money. I've made money. It's great. And from my own personal experience, and I think you could probably say the same thing, it ain't the thing.
It ain't the thing.
Yeah.
We think that that's the thing when we don't have any, but once you have enough, you realize that's not it.
No.
There's more to it. Yeah.
It is for like a moment.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
you like it when you get it first. I mean, I don't hate money. Money is good, and we should all have money. One of the reasons, I think it's a Jim Carrey quote where he says, I want everyone on this world to have money so they can realize that that's not it.
Yeah.
I think it's a Jim Carrey quote. Or
yeah, I feel like he said something like, well, and I've heard him say something to the degree of, maybe it wasn't him, but everybody wants to be rich and famous. Just try being rich first. Because the famous part is the shitty part.
Yeah.
And it's like, I actually like that. I have a lot of friends that are former pro athletes and recognizable. And I go out with them and I'm just like, these poor guys. We're just out trying to have a steak or we're out playing golf and people are always just wanting their attention. They're like, they're out with their buddies. They're out with their wives. And so I've always appreciated that. It's like, just try being rich first.
Yeah. So true.
How did you and Nita meet?
We met at a festival first. At that time, I was married to someone. And then that dark night of the soul I was talking about previously is when I realized I was not really with the partner and me were not really working out at that time. So we separated. And then I had a year off, just traveling and dating. And Nita we were both at a festival, so we got introduced there, but we never really saw each other in that light until one time Nita was traveling to Malaysia because she was writing her first book at the time. And she's very good friends with my business partner, Vishen. And so they both were hanging out and she was there to see him and a bunch of other friends she had. And I came to know she was in town. I was like, hey, you want to hang out? And she goes, yeah, let's hang out. And so in my mind, I was in that season where you're dating a lot.
Yeah.
You're just every pretty woman is a potential date, basically.
I'm saying yes, but it's like I've been married for almost 25 years, so I'm just taking your word for it.
25 years ago, that might have been your life before you met your wife. This was about 2015. So it's about 8 years ago or something, where basically I was dating whoever. would be willing to date me at that time. Like I would try all the shots, you do that thing of the solo life.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, this is this beautiful girl. I remember very vaguely from this event. I was like, hey, you want to come by and get dinner at my place? And we get dinner. And the first thing she tells me is, I don't date Indian men. No, to Indian men. And there's a reason for it. Her ex-husband was physically abusive and was Indian. And so she had just big wall against anybody that was Indian at the time. And so she was like, not going to date it. I was like, all right, that's not going to work out. So like, let's talk. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's okay. And we just hung out really intimately, just as friends for a hot minute. I invited her to stay at my house while she's writing the book because I'm out all day. And then in the evening, I'm with my friends. Still the time in the evening, you're okay that there's a party. Because most likely 4 days of the 7, there will be a party at my house. And that was true at that time for my life. I was marginally alcoholic, I feel, at the time. And some version of an addict. That's how some coaches start, by the way.
Yes, some of the best coaches.
A very terrible.
Talk about life experience. You go through that crucible.
Yeah. So yeah, and she was writing her book at my house, and we were just hanging out. And usually we would hang out after my party was over. For some reason, she would come at like midnight, thinking she's like, living at my house, so she wants to like give me my space. So she would come at midnight while I'm like kind of like everybody's kind of leaving, and so we'll end up speaking and talking for like 2-3 hours. And so we're talking to like 2-3 in the morning. And usually when you're talking post 10 p.m. usually the conversation you're having, especially if you're mildly, drunk, which I was most of those times, the conversation has no filter, right? Like, it's like, I don't know how long we've been recording for, but it said about 45 minutes in, the podcast conversation gets real because you realize that you can't, you don't bullshit anymore.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what was happening every day. It was like we would go deep end, like the worst of the experiences, the best of the experiences, what we truly believe, with no filter. So between 12 and 3 in the morning, we're talking about like the deepest, darkest stuff and the greatest missions of our life and what we have loved and what we have hated. So we became really good friends really fast. We were together. We were just being friends for about a month and a half. Like I broke down in front of her once because I was like, I'm such a terrible leader. And she broke down once, I can't get this book out. Like we are having like full on, very deep friendship experience. And she's still not dating Indians. So I was like, it's okay. And you're at my house anyway. So I'm very respectful. I grew up that way. I'm Indian. So in that culture, like if we are said, we are not, if you're a guest, you're a guest. You're a god in India if you're a guest. So there's no crossing of any boundaries. Which she told me later. She was like, well, none of the nights you tried to take me to your room, you would just say good night and go to your room. I was like, I could not believe it. I was like, well, you told me you didn't want an Indian man. Why would I ask you? Right. So anyway, so the point really being, we are having this great friendship experience. Neeta goes away, does a San Pedro journey in Bali and gets a clear download that she's blocking me in her life. And so we were both speaking at this event in India. And then after speaking at the event, we both go out for dinner just as friends. And she goes, well, I'm open to it. Are you open to it? I was like, I've been open all this while. I wasn't doing nothing because I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to cross any boundary here. And I don't want to be disrespectful. I love you as a friend. So I want to still be your friend. So she's like, yeah, I'm open to play. And then we said, okay, how would we like to date? So our first date was actually in Nice in Paris. Close to Paris in France.
Really?
It was the first time I went to France. So like, that's our first date because I was going there. She was going somewhere else. And I said, why don't you meet me there? And then that's where we went. And then we traveled for a year together because we also were like both very intentional about that. We want to find our kind of a forever relationship or at least a more long-term relationship. We're not interested in fling. Because we had done that, both of us, for the past year and a half. And I was like, I'm not that guy. I can't do flings. Like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I like intense, passionate love. I like the, a very, if you've ever seen a Bollywood movie, it's basically Bollywood or a Hindi movie. It's basically very intense.
Okay.
The love stories are like intense and passionate. And I'm kind of like that. So I was like, I want that kind of love.
Yeah.
And so we both said yes. And we've been together ever since.
I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah, it was a fun ride. It is a fun ride.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love where you guys are heading. I'm excited to hear how this journey unfolds for you.
Yeah. We're excited too. It's fun. Like being parents together has been fun. Moving twice, traveling around the world just by ourselves and then moving twice with children has been fun. We're moving again. So that's been fun. And it seems like we're very, of course, like any relationship, we have our ups and downs. course.
Yeah.
But like our ups are much, like our 10s are really more often
Yeah.
and more fun than our downs or our ones.
What trips you guys up?
What trips us? Between
Yeah,
us?
you know.
So the conflicts that we tend to have. So to give you a little reference point, I understand that anybody's money story has one of two primary outcomes that we get. Either you are driven by security or you're driven by lifestyle or freedom. Sometimes you can reframe it as that, right? We are two ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
I grew up poor. I'm driven by security.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have safety. I want to have security, money. She lost her family when she was 19. She's purely driven by, I don't know if I see tomorrow. So she's driven by lifestyle and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to capture every moment as if there is no tomorrow. For me, I've seen so much, I had seen so little that I'm driven by, I never want to feel that unsafe in my life, that I don't know if I will have a room by myself, which is what I didn't have as a child. So that was like the big trigger for me. So because of that, we are two ends of the spectrum. And now we understand it, but still trips us sometime, is because, and we have to kind of recalibrate. We go, okay, that's what you're looking for. You're really going, hey, Ajit, if you're going and doing this, let's do it in the best way. And I am thinking, but that's too much money we're spending on a flight, right? But then we have to find that balance and say, okay, cool. Okay, so this is okay. I understand why we are doing this. And let's do it this way next time, or book a little early, or whatever it might be, to satisfy my need for security while honoring her need for lifestyle. And she does the same. She goes, here is what lifestyle for what I would like to do, but I also understand your need. So let's see what's the dance we can do. So that's, we now have more amicable conversations around it, but we still do trip up sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you ever see me or her making a snarky comment, it's probably because we have forgotten. And even if we remember it, we are just not accepting of it in that moment.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. I know it's going to trip you up, but I'm going to say it. You know, that thing. So that's one of the things. And the other things are not necessarily that trip us up, but we just have, sometimes we have different expectations of what the truth should be at that time, or the status or how we live is at that time in anything really. It could be related to friends. It could be related to, I am more, I like going out. I like meeting friends, but I can't do it every night.
Mm-hmm.
She loves meeting people every hour of every day.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very different. So sometimes I'll be like, hey, listen, I got to step out of this.
Yeah.
Right. And that sometimes she's, but this is my friend, you know? So it could be that. So there are very situational expectation mismatches. But like, listen, it's been 3 days. I can't do a fourth night. Like it's enough. Like that's that. Ajit needs a night like for himself. Right. So stuff like that. They're just expectation mismatches where if we don't communicate early enough, we would trip up because of it. Because it'll get on the schedule. It can be sometimes related to kids. Sometimes it's basically that. Yeah. But we have much less, like I don't remember our last intense fight. Yeah. We fight, but it's not like, I don't even remember when last I yelled at her or she yelled at me. Yeah. I don't think it has happened in the last 4 years, 5 years. Yeah. For sure. It feels like, I mean, I'm trying to think right now as I'm talking, like, have we yelled at each other? We don't yell at each other. Yeah. Because it's like the moment any one of us will recognize, hey, we are going down this rabbit hole that will become a thing. We say, let's go take a break. We have a word called Hakuna Matata. We just call it Hakuna Matata. Yeah. Anybody can call it. In the middle of a heated conversation, either I or she can go Hakuna Matata. That effectively means go regulate your emotions, come back. Yeah. And then we would come back. But then you come back, you've already thought about it. You're like, that's what she's trying to do, or that's what he's trying to do. So by the time you talk next, it's a very amicable, nice, gentle conversation, you know? Yeah. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's easy for people to just assume that because you have such a great relationship and you're in love and doing all these exciting things that never happens. And
there's no great relationship if they don't fight. That's an indifferent relationship. That's not a great relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just think it's important for people to know that that's part of being in a relationship, because we're growing, changing, and we're trying to navigate what that looks like for ourselves, for the partnership, maybe with our kids involved. And it's complicated.
Yeah, it is. It is very complicated, but it's part of, I mean, that's what makes us feel alive, right? Yeah. It's like going to, why I don't know, you look like an athlete. I don't know if you go out, work out a lot, but But if you do, you like the workout because you get exhausted at one point.
Yeah.
Right? You do competitions so you can get exhausted. And that's what makes the competition good.
Yeah.
It's not even about winning. It's about feeling alive. And I think feeling aliveness is a lot about the arguments, the disagreements, the fighting. Till the time you do it right. Like you can also do it really bad. But till the time you do it right, it's great for a relationship.
Yeah.
We have grown more. And you tell me how it's been for you guys, but we've grown more because we fought. Like it builds understanding somehow.
Yeah, we've gone through periods where we haven't fought. And it's to your point, it's been a point of indifference. And the old, we don't fight. Yeah, we don't do anything. And the relationship really suffers. And when we have those periods, which can be challenging because you feel like you're always being called into, you kind of want to break. You're like, fuck, again?
Yeah.
And this is the only time that we really make progress and we get to that next level is because we start to work out what each other's feeling. And generally in our relationship, it's Peyton coming to me with like, hey, these are some of my needs. And it's just been a challenge for me to express my needs.
A very, very guy thing.
A very guy
Men
thing,
have
right?
a problem with that.
Yeah. And so I'm not doing her any favors by not expressing my needs because she just wants to show up for my needs.
Yeah.
And so then I feel like I'm so self-reliant that I don't need help and I'm robbing us of that connection of her really getting to know me. And so when I can just stand in that with her coming to me with her needs and not, the first thing almost always is, my first instinct is, I'm in trouble. What have I done wrong? and that's not the case. But so when I can move through that and just receive her communication, we just had it this past Sunday. It was, we had a little check-in and then she kind of brought something up and I try not to like, I don't want to say defend myself or what. I just try to, I do the best I can to listen, but sometimes I'm like, no, that's not fair. Like those are two different, what happened a few years ago was under completely different circumstances. What I said the other night, I understand why it upset you. And I get it. I didn't mean it that way, but that's how it sounded. And I get it. And I apologize. And, you know, we kind of opened up this can of worms from a few years back and it got a bit emotional. And it was like, you know, not exactly what, it's kind of hanging on a Sunday morning. And it was amazing because we got through that and there was like a weight lifted. You know, she was carrying what she was carrying. I was feeling a little bit defensive. And then we were both able to just kind of offer that up and move through it and just feel, just much lighter afterwards. And so, you know, one of her things has been to have these Sunday check-ins. And
that's amazing. That's great.
It's great. And I'm so grateful that she's initiating that because it's not my first go-to. There's still that programming here for me where like I'm in trouble. And I need to work with that. That's like, that is my work. Like, it's okay. Like, this is information for you to be a better partner. Like, can you just receive it that way and not feel like you're in trouble? Like I'm 8 years old. Have you been in trouble
in the past that triggers you that way? Or
it's like that 7-8-year-old boy that's in trouble. You know, so I revert to that.
Is
like
that how your parents were like, let's sit you down? And
my dad was a bit rough at times. And so it's just like, you didn't want to cross him. And so what happens is my default when I'm not necessarily regulated is to make myself invisible because that's what I did with my dad. Stay at like, if he don't see you, you can't get in trouble, you know? And unfortunately I would bring that into my relationship with Peyton at times. And again, that I know that that's one of my coping mechanisms and that it's not serving the relationship.
Well, but you're doing great because you're agreeing to let's sit down and do that thing, even if it hurts and it's hard and it's difficult and it probably triggers you the moment you go, oh, fuck, I have to sit down on the
It
Sunday
totally
again.
triggers me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I suggest something?
I'd love it. Yeah.
So the way me and Nita decided to do is we made it a date night. So instead of saying we'll sit down and check in, we will walk and check in. We will have a dinner that we agree to and have check in.
Yeah.
We would go on an adventure and check in. So what happens when you're moving in some way or you're in a different container, not in your house where you're sitting down and checking in, is it changes the frame of reference and you're more open-minded, right? So you must have realized this. Your best ideas come when you're walking or taking a shower or doing something that's like...
The walking thing is, I've talked with my kids before, either in the car because we're not facing each other. It's more easier for them to receive. Yeah. For sure. I'm familiar with that, the context of walking and...
Yeah. So that's why mine and Nita's date nights, and we take turns. 1 month I would do, 1 month she would do.
Yeah.
And we are almost like surprising the other person. The other person knows they have to be free by 4:00 on a Thursday. That's it. Because 4:00 onwards, we are either driving to a place or we are at a place or whatever it is, depending on the week and what we have planned. But it is always an activity because we know we will talk about stuff that is probably hard stuff from the week or from some time ago. Now it's not some time ago because we've probably talked about all of it. So it doesn't really come up for long stuff, but it comes from the week for sure.
Yeah.
For whatever I need to say, whatever she needs to say. It's easier for as men also to talk when we are doing something versus when we're sitting down and somebody looking at us and talking.
Yeah.
Because we don't look at each other and talk. Like even as guys, like if you hang out with your boys, you ain't sitting down and talking. Most of the time, if that is happening, you're drinking beer at the same time, right? But you're usually going golfing with your friends or doing a hard workout or you're at the kayak or something else, climbing. You're doing something else. You're not looking at the guy's eye and talking. That's just not how guys are wired. It's harder for us to look dead in the eye and talk versus do something and talk, right? So it becomes easier for you to talk that way. It's easier for her to talk also. At least that's what Nita tells me, because it's like, oh, there's movement. So emotionally, they're regulating while you're walking because the body is moving, right? So some kind of activity would help, and strongly recommend that every time after the talk, go have sex.
Yeah, I thought about that Sunday. I'm like, it was too much after the fact, but I was like, it would be great to finish these conversations with time in the bedroom. Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have seen every hotel in Austin because of that. Pretty much any good quality hotel I've been inside. Yeah. And we look like the super awkward, like these guys are probably cheating on their husband and wife. But no, we are totally husband and wife, just finishing a long walk or doing something and then rolling into a hotel where the valet is like, all right, you don't look like, what is this? They have one
Keep
bag.
my car out here. I'll be right down.
We'll be out in like 2 hours. They're like, what? You're not staying overnight, but you're checking in and you have this one tiny bag with all your, fun toys or whatever you want to call it. But it's a great way to end because both of you then at the end of it would end up, physically touching each other.
I love that.
Before, during, after, because you're not going to get straight into it. You're going to take your time and all of that stuff. So it's a great way to end, to regulate and remind yourself of the love as well. And I mean, even if it's not sex, at least lie on the bed and like cuddle up for a couple of minutes, if not half an hour, to at least kind of go, okay, we are here. This is fine. This is hard. This would probably like seem really difficult, but it's totally worth it. It's like, this is what I really signed up for and it's okay. And I think that could be helpful in receiving hard stuff.
Yeah.
Because hard stuff is hard stuff. And especially if it is excavated from old past, I can see how triggering that can be. It's like, I wasn't even saying that. And I don't remember what I said.
That happens.
So I have to believe what you said, but I really don't see myself saying that.
Right.
Yeah, I so hear you. It was like, that's not what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay. If you say so, I'll hear it.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad I asked about that. And that those are some great nuggets right there for me and for everybody listening, especially the finale part. I think a lot of people are going to be excited about that.
Most of the men would be. Like, that means I get to have sex with my wife every week at least. Yes, that's what it means. And it's important. It should be more than that to all the women.
Yes.
But to men, at least once a week is a good idea.
All right. So how can people find you? How can they work with you? Give us the rundown.
Yeah, the best way to find me is on Instagram right now. It's at Real Coach Ajit. That's my Instagram handle. And if you're interested in any of our programs, go to mindvalley.com/certs, CERTS. There are about 3 of them that I teach. So you can pick whichever one fits you.
Awesome. And we'll have all that in the show notes as well. And Ajit, great to have you here, brother.
Thank you so much, man. This was super fun.